I can pinpoint for you the exact moment that I decided to make this video. It's right here. In the brief downtime that I found walking around the city of ODST, I flicked off my night vision, and it struck me as I looked at the city, this is what the developers wanted to make 5 years prior. 5 years before Halo ODST, Bungie was working on Halo 2, and its development was infamously pretty much something out of reality television. Pre-production was a mess, where they wanted to cram as much cool stuff into the game as possible without really thinking about their viability.
And then everything that wasn't essential, all these things that we just loved to see in the game, they get put on the bottom of this list, and we start hacking them off.
Here comes the knife. Out of the script, what's important, that isn't, goodbye my lovely child.
And one of the many things that had to be cut was the entire lighting engine.
We had a vision in our mind about what Halo 2 would look like, and that vision is really easy to see in the Halo 2 announcement trailer. Stencil shadows on everything, real-time reflections in the Master Chief's visor, this very crisp, well-wrought image. And when we got to the actual implementation of some of the choices we had made, we realized that it's impossible, and we went around and around on that and other questions for perhaps too long.
Halo 2 was not originally taking its main visual inspiration from, its predecessor, the original Combat Evolved. It was actually taking inspiration from Fear and Doom 3. Bungie decided Halo 2 is going to have stencil shadows, a technology that produces these strong, extreme dynamic shadows. They wanted this on the original Xbox. It's safe to say that wasn't exactly realistic. In the final shipped release, everything kind of looks like it has SV Fulbright on, and it looks fine for a game from 2004, but also Half-Life 2. The remaster kind of captures some of this energy by lighting the rooms dramatically differently, but now with the power of modern computers, you can play through the original game with dynamic lights thanks to mods, and it made everything make so much more sense. It wasn't just supposed to be Halo again with dual wielding, it was meant to be like fighting in dark laser tag arenas where your enemies are only lit up by the glowy parts of their suits silhouetted in darkness. In the clips that I'm about to show, a lot of the lighting is rim lighting, and so I want to explain what that means. The side or silhouette of a character being colored based off something in the environment is a rim light, and these can really sell a character being in a place. These are not absent in vanilla Halo 2, but they are far less noticeable and dramatic because character models are all lit up to begin with. With that gone, the environmental rim lights are all that remain, making gameplay and cutscenes look astronomically better. On top of that, it handles darkness a lot better. Did you ever think the Gravemind looked a little off? So off that they had to make it overly creepy in the remake? Well, with the new lighting, I get what they were going for. The entire encounter is lit only by a dim green light below everyone, only letting you barely make out the details of the characters. This is a lot better than how it originally looked. But I want to highlight some areas that really stood out to me in gameplay, starting with something that's really small. Throughout the whole game, there are a lot of moments where lights are placed opposite to walls, and so you get these really cool shadows as you and your friends walk past them. And when I say that there are a lot of these, I mean there are a lot of them, particularly in the Arbiter's levels. In one of them, and don't ask why an elite is riding along the side of a scorpion, in one of them there was this neat moment where the wall light does some accidental shadow puppetry. Later on in this level, there's an area enveloped in darkness, and you see some doors open at the far side with some flood pouring out. They drop down into the dark, the doors close, and the only sign of them left is their lit energy swords walking towards you. There's this area in the first Arbiter level, with the light from the pillar being blocked by this rotating metal that looks pretty good. And there's a lot of differences which are way more normal in games now, and so don't seem particularly special. What is not subtle at all is how the penultimate mission looks, which is the romp back through High Charity after it's all been floodified. This was the highlight of the playthrough for me, maybe even the highlight of the series. Nearly all the lighting in the level has been removed, meaning you have to fight the Flood when you can only see them when they're silhouetted against the dim lights on the walls. Here, watch this and tell me if it creeps you out. The Flood and Covenant fight each other in the darkness, and you can only tell what's happening off sound and the occasional muzzle flash, and when you do have to fight, you just gotta shoot into the darkness and hope that it hits something. And the sections in High Charity where there are lighting look gorgeous. I mean, look at this. Even with hardware 20 years past what Bungie were working with, I still saw frame rate drops, which should show you how extremely out of scope they were back in 2003 and 2004 trying to get this to work on the original Xbox. Game development is an unimaginably complicated process, and seeing something like this put back into the game teaches you a lot about what the developers were originally trying to achieve, how they failed, and how that failure might actually be a good thing. What I mean by that is, well, it's weird to think that if they had actually pulled this off, I probably wouldn't have liked it. I played a lot of Halo 2 as a youngin', and if they managed this lighting system, not only would I have probably not played it anywhere near as much, the whole game might have been way less successful. Halo 2 is responsible for the competitive shooter scene, they made MLG a thing, and competitive games really don't like a lack of visibility very much. Hell, if it had still worked out and the game was still a competitive success, maybe the competitive games that we see today would be more about lighting rather than visual barf. But technology advanced, as it tends to do, and Bungie moved on to make more Halo games. Halo 3 finished the story, telling the parts that were supposed to be part of Halo 2, and after that, they released ODST. With their experimental little side project, I think they finally were able to put together exactly what they wanted to do half a decade beforehand. The lighting in ODST is extreme. You can have a neon light right next to pitch black darkness, and that's not exactly realistic, but I mean, look at it, it looks amazing. There's those emissive lights everywhere, not just on enemies, but the environment is coated in them. They were able to pull this off without really worrying about visibility being an issue thanks to the inclusion of the ODST visor. At any time you can turn on night vision that lets you actually see, and the environment artists were given free rein to make the levels as pretty as possible without any worry as to how it would affect gameplay. It takes an extreme amount of artistry to make levels that look good with night vision on, and they definitely pulled that off here too. It not being real night vision, instead looking more like being underwater, was a good choice to preserve how the environments look, and it's a choice that I bet the environment artists played a very heavy hand in. Whether it be above ground or down in the tunnels, they look good with or without the visor on. The inclusion of more harsh lighting also isn't just cause, like, it's cool. It has a thematic purpose in ODST, what with the game being about a lone soldier in a hostile environment sneaking around. If it did look like Halo 2, you probably wouldn't even think about sneaking up on people if it was fully lit up all the time, but the shadows help remind and reinforce you that, oh yeah, you can do that. And it does look great, both in gameplay and also in cutscenes. They tend to play with darkness a lot more, with these really harsh angles that are really interesting to look at. I hadn't really played ODST before making this video, but I kinda love it now. The perfect example that I have that this was their original vision is a pair of scenes. One is in the original Halo 2, but with the modded dynamic lighting put back in, and then the other one is at the end of ODST. As you can see, they're basically the exact same shot. If we look at how it looks in base Halo 2, just for comparison's sake, it's disappointing. But come less than a year later, somehow, Bungie finally achieved their vision, I think. Reach pulls off the perfect melding of the two styles of lighting that they'd done, and it only took retooling their entire engine. Reach's visual range is much better than other Halo games. It can handle both bright and dark environments equally well, whereas, say, ODST really struggles with its daytime environments. They feel extremely washed out and unreadable as everything blends together in a yellow mess, but Reach's daytime environments on the other hand are just as readable as the nighttime ones. It being hard to see an enemy on occasion is clearly intentional, whereas in ODST it's because of a lack of contrast. The bright colors of the elites help make them stand out amongst the environment, whereas in ODST I can't tell brutes apart from trash cans, because the color tones of their armor is so dull and hard to read without the ODST's inbuilt cheats. This is the only time this is a problem in ODST, because usually you can fall back on the night vision, but doing that here, well, it's like playing Counter-Strike again and getting pop flashed. Back to Reach, it's important to note that the art style is noticeably different from the other Halo games. It's way more grounded, and realism is a really big focus, so a lot of the time was put into making the lighting significantly more convincing. There's less extreme neon street right next to a pitch black alleyway, because that's just not how light works. Back in 2010, this looked mind-blowing, and it still does look good, but the chase for realism has kind of concluded now 15 years later. That means that in retrospect, I actually like ODST's lighting more, at least in theory. It's more stylized and that makes it more interesting to look at. Reach is plenty interesting to look at as well, don't get me wrong, but it's like asking, would you like to look at this pretty picture with beautiful composition and detail? Or would you like to look at something like this, which is immediately striking? Neither is better, of course, but one is inherently unique. It's weird for me to say, but while Reach might be the perfect blend of lighting from the old Halo games, I don't know, sometimes you just like your coffee black, you know? So that's the story of Halo's lighting.
Are you not going to talk about the remasters?
Look, They're fine, okay? I get that they're controversial, but I actually think they're just good. Especially because the originals haven't gone anywhere. It's not a Warcraft situation. Popular consensus on the remaster of at least the first Halo game is that they're completely horrible with no redeeming qualities, which is like pretty disrespectful to the people who made it and also really unfair, I think. The remaster of CE is supposed to like make it look like Reach. The enemies look like they're from Reach, the weapons look like they're from Reach. It's supposed to be a continuation of Reach because the game happens immediately after Reach, and that's cool. This is the kind of thing that if it were a mod, people would say it should have been added officially. Back in 2000, they didn't do this, not because they were like, let's make the game look like it's on the Nintendo 64 to ensure as much visual clarity as possible. The game looks like how it did because they were limited by hardware. I mean, they didn't care about visual clarity, they wanted the sequel to look like Fear. So when the remaster came around, they plugged in the new models now that we have that power, because frankly, Bungie probably would have done the same thing if it were possible back then. Like, yeah, the remaster is not all good. Like, its changes to the Forerunner aesthetic is a little bit over the top, but people love their pointless greeble. That's a real word, by the way. Look it up. But this is bad and evil greeble that's placed by the demon lord Zaraxos. It looks a little jarring to have such good-looking models in a 20-year-old game, but the Oblivion remaster did the same thing, and that's been pretty positively received. And to the end of the day, should you play Halo 1 with the old or the remastered graphics? Personally, I think you should play it with the none of them. I don't think you should play Halo 1 at all. Like, 75% of that game is in Forerunner Ruins, and the game sucks. Play Halo 2 instead. The second half of that game is banger after banger. Speaking of, the remaster for this game is actually so good that I don't think it's a contest. Comparing what the fights look like with the new environments, models, sound, and lighting to what they used to look like is almost comical. There's no way that I can convey this better than just actually showing you an example. So, here's the new graphics, right? Here's what they actually used to look like. Safe to say, the remaster straight up looks amazing, especially in the darker environments where they finally got to let those emissive lights shine, with the enemies and allies sometimes totally enshrouded in darkness. Where it's not dark, it's way more obvious where the sun is meant to be shining, so you want to actually go there. Switching to the old graphics, it's hard to tell if it's meant to be lit up or if the thing just like looks like that naturally. I think some of the effects are kind of obnoxious and the energy sword sound is wrong. But overall, it is such a substantial improvement that I think you would have to be insane to argue that base Halo 2 is better, and I have been playing that game since I was 7. That being said, with dynamic lights back in the original, that actually makes it a contest. I can't really settle on which one I think is better, so which do you prefer, the remaster or the new old one? I do love the way that old Halo 2 looked, though nostalgia is absolutely a factor. All I'll say is that the old sound effects beat out the modern ones pretty hard. When you crack an energy sword out, instead of sounding something like all tiddly like in the remaster, it should sound like this and destroy some subwoofers. Oh, and a final warning about Halo 2, and this is very important. Stay away from Legendary. If you play this, you will regret it. It is best played on normal, and people who say otherwise have been peer pressured into only playing it on heroic or above, and I know this because I was one of them until I made this video. On normal, all of your allies don't die instantly, and you get to have friends and listen to the genuinely quite funny dialogue.
Where'd this come from, Chief?
Wait, the remasters aren't even made by Bungie. That could have been my excuse not to talk about them. Shit. Thanks to my patrons, and me and Potato especially. Like, comment, subscribe, give me money and all that, and drink water.